Well, Nigel Farage joins us now. A man of the moment, the year, influential, divisive, controversial, polarising. All those things?
That all sounds pretty fair to me. Look, you know, this idea of polarising, the point of the referendum was to say yes or no, wasn't it? It was to say remain or leave. So, of course, you know, there's been some bad feeling since the referendum. But, you know, I was really pleased yesterday morning. The 5 biggest business groups in the country, all of whom warned about Brexit last year, were saying, do you know what? Let's get on with it and make a success of it.
There's no doubt that the apocalyptic warnings that came from the Remain camp have not come to fruition to date. What the smart guys tell me is, well, look, we haven't actually left yet. There's been no mechanism for leaving. We're 2 years away from that happening. How confident are you, from the way it's played out so far, that when we get to that point, what Theresa May calls the going over the cliff point, that the country will be in a good position to deal with that? Because that's the real question.
Well, my worry is not what happens to British business because we leave. My worry is what's going to happen to the Eurozone. You know, the European Union is a big market for us. About 40% of our overseas trade is with our next-door neighbours. You've got political crises, you've got the migrant crisis becoming a massive issue. In Germany, the biggest Italian bank, or the oldest Italian bank, is basically bankrupt. So my worry is that the Eurozone goes through a terrible time and that damages British industry, which is why what we've got to do is get on with Brexit and start making trade deals with other parts of the world, starting with, you've guessed it, the USA.
Yeah, OK, so let's talk about some of the downsides. And as you say, the apocalypse hasn't happened yet. The actual decision hasn't been, you know, triggered yet.
Sorry, apocalypse. Why do you say apocalypse?
No,
because
Piers Morgan said that some of the apocalyptic predictions by the Remain camp hadn't come.
None of it's going to happen.
OK, well, except that, hang on a second, the Chancellor said the referendum meant that the potential for growth over the forecast period 2.4 percentage points lower than would otherwise have been the case. Britain will have to borrow £130 billion more than was forecast.
Oh, that's a bit rich,
before
isn't it, from a
the
government
referendum result. The stark cost of Brexit laid bare Britain's finances will plunge by almost £60 billion. The UK will have to borrow £16 billion extra to make up for lower migration.
I'm sorry, this is basically George Osborne Mark II, isn't it? Osborne went...
Well, except this is the guy who's now in charge of our finances.
After the referendum, the guy they put in charge of the finances also backed Remain. The problem is this. We had a revolution of the people in this country in 2016. Unfortunately, with the exception of Cameron and Osborne, the same people are still in charge. And I'm worried. I mean, look, it's been over 6 months since we voted to leave. What have they done? Nothing. So I'm concerned that we have a government that is not really committed to carrying out the will of the people.
Well, that's not... Sorry, just to interrupt for a moment. That's not what Theresa May said. I mean, Theresa May has been pretty adamant about the fact that she's, you know, Brexit means Brexit. She's going to get the best deal. Quite reasonably, she says she wants that to be the best deal for those who voted Remain as well as those who voted Leave. Do you think she is competent to carry this out? Is that what you're suggesting, that you have doubts about her competence?
In 6 months, she's done nothing. And so we're now waiting for a Supreme Court judgment in a couple of weeks' time. We've got a French...
Well, she has no control over that.
We've got a... Well, yes, if she triggered Article 50, there would have been no court case. We would have been up and running and the process would have started. Her indecision is putting us on the back foot. We've even got a guy called Monsieur Barnier, who's been appointed with the European Commission to lead the renegotiations, dictating timetables to us. I think what we need is some much clearer, firmer leadership. We may well lose some fantastic opportunities. You know, over 20 countries have approached us since the referendum saying, can we do a trade deal? At the moment, we've started formal discussions with not one of them.
OK, let's turn to perhaps the biggest potential partner out of all this, the United States. You know, another divisive, polarising character, Donald Trump, about to become president. A lot of people in Britain, as they are in America and around the world, still abusing him, mocking him and everything else. Is that smart politics by Britain? Should we not be really embracing the fact that Trump, as I know and you know, feels half British, his mum was Scottish and stuff, he's opened his arms. Barack Obama was like, you're back of the queue if you leave Britain, if you leave Europe. What should we be doing with the Donald Trump administration to benefit this country?
Well, of course, the problem is that so many of our cabinet members and senior staffers in Number 10 were really quite abusive about Trump during the campaign, without needing to do it, but they were quite abusive about him. So there are some fences...
And with some good reason in some cases.
Well, he did say some things that were pretty out there.
So what do we do now to benefit us?
I think what we have to do is very quickly after he's inaugurated, send out a big, strong signal that for the defence of NATO, for the interests of trade, we want to get back as close as we can with the American administration. And, you know, the one thing, Piers, I mean, you and I are the only people in this country, it seems to me, who have any sort of working relationship with Donald Trump.
Yeah, so which of you should be ambassador then?
Oh, I'll spin you for it. I mean, I don't mind.
I think Piers is a more ambassadorial name than Nigel.
Do you know what? I'll grant you that. All right, I give in.